What's going on, everybody? This is Misfit, and today I'm doing my final team preview episode for 2022 in the Overwatch League. Today we're going to be talking about our final three teams on the list. We have the Toronto Defiant, the Vancouver Titans, and the Washington Justice. So, three teams left, and then we're going to start talking about the season and what's going on with that. But before we dive into anything, I'd like to thank all you guys for joining me. All you guys have been around for 1 day or for 5 years since this thing started. Thank you very much. If you're new, thanks a lot for stopping by. I do Overwatch League content 2 to 3 times a week. This week we amped it up a little bit. I had to take last week kind of off because I was sick. So those episodes got pushed to this week, and we're just loading them up, getting ready to go for the season. So normally, like I said, 2 to 3 times a week. Thanks for stopping by. All right, let's dive into this. So let's hit our first team on the list, the Toronto Defiant. Okay, let's talk Toronto. So for the umpteenth time, Toronto failed to meet expectations, and here we are. Once again, they did not perform. Yeah, they were in the playoffs. They were kind of on the edge of things. They were just, I don't know. They were decent enough, but not good. I think they actually did better than I expected. Some people said they did worse. They had a lot of guys on this team that they brought in, and let's talk about that. All right, so they went back to a full Korean kind of roster. It was mixed to start. Well, I guess it was kind of mixed, kind of like San Francisco's doing this year, in a way. All right, gone from the team. From the Defiant this year, Aspire, Logix, Naste, Sado, Michelle, Aztac, Lastro, Sunjae. So that's who left the team. Okay, it's the same story with them. We thought they were going to look better with Sado and Michelle actually looked pretty good. Aspire had moments where he was good. They had guys that looked good at moments, but they just never could put anything together fully. And, it's the same story with them every year. So, let's talk about this year. Okay, so this year, we have DPS line, Although, who was on O2 Blast. Obviously, some of you guys might remember he was on the Spitfire in 2020. But the most recent team was on O2 Blast. Although it was pretty good. He was on that London team was terrible. It's really hard to say anything. Then they also brought in Finale, who was on Uprising Academy. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't even. Although is going to be a projectile, kind of has a wide hero pool. Mostly projectile. Mei, Echo, Tracer, Genji. So let's talk about Finally. He's another projectile. Typical hero pool. Echo, Genji, Pharah, Tracer. I don't know a ton about this guy. I know he's decent enough. And then they're building this team around the only guy they kept, Hisu. So we have Hisu in here. He's going to be your hit scan dude and covers Sombra and Reaper and things like that. Well, Reaper is hit scan, but, a lot of times, sometimes projectile guys take over Reaper. But he's going to be your shooty guy, hit scan. Which, okay. Building my team around Hisu, I wouldn't necessarily go there. But he's not bad. I'm not saying he's bad, but it's not the greatest thing in the world. All right, now, here's the best part of their team. Let's talk supports. Twilight, flex support god. Ana, amazing. Zenyatta, great. His BAP is good. He was playing, with the Shock alongside Violet. Generally, he'd do Ana or something like that. They played off each other pretty well. But he's got all the bases covered, and he also does Brig and Moira. No problems there. And then they brought in Chorong from Talon. Fantastic main support. Lucio, Mercy, Brig. So you got your bases covered here, and they're really good. Obviously, Twilight is more of a veteran than Chorong, but I think their support line's great. Tank line, we have Hotba on his 6,000th team in 5 years, and Muse, who got released from the Glads last year and is now playing with Toronto Defiant. So Hotba's obviously your off tank, going to take care of all that stuff. Good veteran presence, a good guy. He's a journeyman. He's like one of those backup quarterbacks that can fill in to me. He does that stuff really well. He's never going to set the world on fire, but he's never going to let you down necessarily. Muse, mixed reviews on last year with him. I thought he was pretty good. He wasn't the greatest, I guess, but he wasn't terrible either. I mean, the Glads were still really good. He wasn't the biggest problem that they had on that team, but Toronto has him now. Now, the thing about this team, and I'm going to say this, to me it feels like leftovers from a cool restaurant, good restaurant. You know, when you had it at the moment, it was good. You brought it, you bring it home, and you go to eat it again. It's not quite as good. It still has the vibe there that it was. You know what I mean? That's kind of this team. Hisu, I don't think is that. He's not the be-all, end-all hit scan. And with the money this team's had, they could have went out and got somebody better, in my opinion. Twilight was a good pickup. Choron, good pickup. The rest of it, though, is kind of, like I said, leftovers from a nice restaurant. Once were great. Once it was really good. But now it's just average. And do not expect a lot out of this team, to be brutally honest. I'm done having high expectations for the Defiant. I think their support line's great. I think there's a couple other guys on here that might do decently enough. I see them maybe in the Mayhem / below Mayhem range. We're talking, I see them 9 to 12. Mayhem punched up a little bit and got Exy. I see them in the bottom of NA. I don't think they're terrible. I don't think they're fantastic by any stretch of the imagination. And the way this team rolls is I just think they're going to be meh at best. That's the way it looks to me on paper. You can fight me about that all you want. You can tell me how great 3 years ago or 4 years ago Aldo was. How good Finale was. How good Muse was in Contenders. How good Hotbo was when he came into the league. How great Hisu is. No. It's not great. I root for this team too. So maybe it's a little bit more of my emotion coming out in here. Just doing I don't see it. You guys are cuckoo bananas thinking that they're going to be good. But I don't. I think they're going to be scratching for wins. In NA, where you have teams that are upgrading and have upgraded their talent and have vastly superior talent to them. It's not bad talent, but it's not on the level of some of the other teams in NA. So, overall, I see them same thing. Bottom third of the league. Unfortunately. Maybe they pick some guys up. Maybe these guys are going to pop off in Overwatch 2. I really don't see it, but stranger things have happened. So, that's my take on Toronto. So, we talked about the Toronto Defiant. Now, let's move on to the next team. We are going to talk about the Vancouver Titans. Okay, let's talk about the Titans. All right, last year, we know what happened last year. The only thing they had going for them was a breadstick promo, which took us all the way to the last game of the season. That was the most fun thing about Vancouver last year. The rest of it was god-awful. They were absolutely terrible. Obviously, one win, blew it up again. They're reworking, obviously going all Western again. Let's talk about who they released. Okay, so last year's roster. All right, Lynx are retired. Fried Weeder, Fire, Chongsik, Teru, Rolf, and Dalton all gone. So obviously you had to do something. You had to get rid of that team. They were good guys. I love Fried Weeder. I think Dalton's good at a point, but you know what? They needed to move on. Now let's talk about what they did this year. Okay, so let's talk about their DPS line. They bring in Aspire, Shockwave, and Seiko. I'm assuming it's supposed to be a take on Sicko. I don't know. Seiko. I don't know much about Seiko. Throw that out right now. I do not know much about European contenders at all. So I don't know what his value is as far as like what he does. I know he's a flex DPS. Mayfar and Echo in the hero pool. It seems as though he played some Doomfist as well. Then you have Aspire and Shockwave. Aspire last year with Toronto, I thought was fantastic. Tracer, hit scan guy. Good guy to have. I think, you're going to run into Tracer metas. You always are in this game. So, and he's also a really good hit scan on other stuff. So I think that's great. They brought Shockwave back for a second run after he was on Philly last year. Also a hit scan, but he does some other things here and there too, to play some Hanzo and whatnot. I think he's good. Aspire's good. I don't know much about Sicko. Now let's talk about, they have one tank. And that is going to be False. He played for Maryville Esports last year. I don't know, like I said, don't know a ton about him. Off-tank role, you don't have a main tank on this team, you could be in trouble. As far as it looks right now. And, like I said, don't know too much about him. Support line, Aztec, they brought over from Toronto. And Massa from Atlanta. Massa's the best player on this team, maybe outside of Aspire and Shockwave. So you bring Massa over. He's a leader. He's a vocal guy, and he's going to be good for this team. They have a lot of young guys, a lot of unproven talent. He's a good Lucio, so it seems like you're going to need that right now. Aztec, he was they brought Lastro in last year. He didn't do that much with Toronto. It's going to be your flex support. I heard good things about him coming out of Contenders when Toronto picked him up, and maybe it was Toronto's system or something like that, but he didn't really do anything with them. And you also have a third support. Scarpa plays another main support. So you have two main supports. Who else? He can also play Zenyatta as well. And Massa. Okay, I think this team looks better than it did last year by far. They could have moments. But it looks like a hot mess to me. This Vancouver organization just shits on their fans and gives them false hope. There's a certain point where breadsticks don't fucking matter. There's a certain point where you got to put a good product on the field, so to speak. Last year, the only thing that saved this team from being talked about like the LA Valiant or the Shanghai Dragons from 2018. Or themselves, or Boston from the 2 years previous, was a breadstick promo. It was fun. But what I'm getting at is this is a continual thing. Since they signed that runaway team, that was like the god tier GOATS team, and they should have kept through 2020. And those guys were like, dude, what is going on with this joint? And they eventually fired them all and sent them on their merry way. They're just picking up people at this point. Massa's the only proven talent besides Aspire and Shockwave, to me. The rest of the guys are kind of meh. I don't even know 3 of the guys on here. You guys can rail me for that or whatever. But, my God, this is another failed year. They're down in the bottom of the dumps. They're with London, Toronto. They're hanging out down there where they always are. That's all. This team makes me mad. I'm sorry. But there are going to be moments where they're decent enough. I think Aspire's good. Shockwave's decent. Massa's decent. There's teams that are above them that aren't even considered good that have far superior talent than this team. I have no hope for this team. Me personally. I mean, some of you guys might. I think it's going to be them in London towards the bottom again. That's where we're at with Vancouver. So let's talk about our last team on the list. Because I didn't really have a ton of stuff to say about Vancouver except for, reset button again. All right, let's talk. Washington is a far more interesting thing to talk about anyway. You guys know me in Washington last year. They drove me bananas. They became my new Houston. And I know a couple of you guys got on me about it too. But let's talk about them this year. All right, last year it was obviously disappointing. They have the talent on this team. This is another one of those teams. They're like West Hangzhou. So last year, obviously, not as good as what they hoped for. We thought their tank line was going to be insane, just wrecking kids, but they didn't. With Mag and Fury, didn't happen. The rest of the components that were on this team were not good. Let's just flat out say it. It wasn't great. You didn't lose, other than you losing Fury. You lost Bebe, Jerry, Closer, and Tuba. I'm not upset about that if I'm a Washington fan. Jerry and Tuba did absolutely nothing. They brought Tuba in to fuck up Brig, is the only thing they brought him in for. Those are the guys that are gone. Now let's talk about their current roster. They decided to stick with Decay and Assassin, which Decay I could see. He seems a little temperamental and a little diva-ish. Not the character, but his general overall being is a diva. He's talented as fuck, and he is unbelievably cracked when he's in there and he wants to play. The thing is he has those moments where he doesn't want to. That's concerning to me sometimes. So obviously he's got an odd hero pool, but he plays a lot of Tracer. He can do long range stuff, but he doesn't like doing long range stuff now. So I guess he's a Tracer specialist. So I guess he's going to be your Cassidy's and those kind of hit scans when you have him in there for a non-Tracer thing. I'm assuming he's like basically becoming a Striker type player. Striker can play other stuff. Striker played Reaper really well and things like that. I think Decay wants to be a Tracer guy, from the way it sounds. Or feels, I should say. Feels, not sounds. Assassin, your projectile, he wasn't the greatest last year, but he was playing a lot of Sombra. And when I got to see him on some other stuff, I thought he looked pretty good. So, and he came in with a lot of hype and a lot of stuff. Maybe he'll do better this year but there's going to be a lot of Sombra potentially, too. We don't know. And they bring in Happy from Houston and formerly of Guangzhou. Now, this guy's a cracked long-range dude. You have nothing to worry about with him in there. And his other hit scans are really, really good. Ash, Cassidy, and then he has, also has Hanzo in his back pocket along with the Widowmaker. And he can potentially play Tracer. But if you got Decay, just play Decay. So I like their DPS line. It looks really, really good. I like it. I think this is a nice, above average to really, really good, on the cusp of great DPS line. I like it. I like the way it looks. Let's talk about tanks. We have Mag. He didn't have the greatest year last year, but he wasn't as bad as a lot of people made him out to be. It's just the situation, the scenario, the whole thing surrounding it, I think, was terrible last year. I don't know what went on there, but it just didn't feel like things fit. I think Mag is looking at a rebound year. He needs to prove a lot of things, and I think he can do that. He upped his game on a couple of heroes, and I think his main tank hero pool is going to be good. You're going to see some Reinhardt, so I'm assuming you're going to see him in there, and that'll be fine. Main tank, you're fine. They bring in Kalios from New York. Kalios, he's a hot butt type. He's good to above average. He's not going to wow you. He's not going to lose you matches. He's going to just be steady, do what he has to do his job. But if he's solo, that's where the thing comes in. Now, you could play off tank and be serviceable. Now your job requirement has been upped for some of these guys that are quote-unquote serviceable off tanks. Sasin, Hotba, Kalios, guys like that. You're the main guy. You're the only guy. So are you going to be able to take on space? Are you going to be able to take on some of the other high level or whatever the other team is running? Are you going to be able to 1v1 these guys? Because there's going to be a lot of that going on. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think it's bad, but it's not the greatest move. It's what they could do. So, all right, we got that. Now let's talk supports. We got the mullet is back. Krillin right now will be your starter at flex support. He got in a little bit towards the end of his tenure with the Spitfire in 2020. He was on T1 and he did pretty good there. I mean, they always finish pretty high, so, or at least last year they did pretty well. He was fine there. Maybe he learned some stuff the first go around, and now he's back. He's on a better team by far, but he's holding a place for Vigilante, who will not be eligible, I believe, until like July or August. Somewhere towards the last stage, I think he'll be able to come in. And he's cracked. So, he's going to be, he can come in July. So, he's going to be your guy that will take over for Krillin. And then you have Krillin there if you need a double flex support or whatever. But all reports, Vigilante's the guy. He is the next great flex support. And they got him. And he just can't come in until July. So, you got Krillin filling his shoes. Okay, not terrible, not great. Opener instead of closer. I think they just honestly just signed him because of that. He's been around in Contenders, main support. He's been in the Gen G family of teams and things like that. He was also on an Australian team, but he's also very young, just 18. If he's got a good Lucio, I think he'll be fine. I don't know a ton about the guy. I've heard some things that says he's not bad, he's not great. We're going to see. He's 18, coming into a new game. We'll see how it goes. All right, so that's the roster. I think this team, I'm not going to say is going to surprise some people. I think they're going to be in that maybe a little bit above the Mayhem range. I use the Mayhem. I think they're not in the 10 to 13 bad. They're just like outside of that at their floor and maybe can punch up to 6th. Because it's going to be hard because you're a really good player that you got coming in, Vigilante, isn't coming in until July, which is after, I believe it's after the mid-season tourney, whatever it is, the international mid-season tournament. You got the back half of the season with him, so you could make up ground there. But on the start, I'm going to put them middle ground, somewhere floating in that middle range, which isn't terrible, but they have enough players on this team. It's the management that they have the same coaching staff. They still have Supreme, and I don't have any faith in them really to take this team in a different direction. They were just lost in the sauce last year so many times in metas. Like would they have like 4 games in a stage? They would go down 0-2 or 0-3 in a couple of them because they didn't know what the hell was going on. They would get absolutely clowned on. And like they would go into stages not knowing what was the preferred meta or etc. Maybe some of the guys on this team could be better. Play better. Decay had his issues last year. So did Mag and Assassin. And I think it's more the management side of what they were telling them to do and their overall schemes and things like that, more than the talent on this team. Much like Hangzhou. These guys are all talented dudes. If they're mismanaged, they're not going to do anything. And I'm not going to say that they're not going to do anything this year. I think they're going to be a little bit in the middle in NA. Fighting for the middle. Are there times they can rise up? Sure. If you get the right meta and you get Decay and Assassin or Decay and Happy or somebody on their comfort picks that they can just pop the fuck off, yeah, you're going to make some noise with those guys. I think that's a reasonable spot to put these guys in. But, you know what, guys? That's going to do it, and that's going to be the last one of our team previews. So, today we went over the final 3 teams, Toronto, Vancouver, and Washington. Next episode, we're going to dive into some season stuff, get you guys ready to go for the beginning part of the first tournament, the kickoff clash, or I think it's called, whatever alliterative name that they've chosen for the first tournament, kickoff clash. We're going to get you ready for that. We're going to talk about all the things that we kind of went over a little bit early on, some of the stuff that's happened while we were doing team previews. We're going to talk about all that, potential meta stuff. We'll get into some of that noise. And then after that, we are going to talk week 1 of the Overwatch League. Finally here, guys. To thank all you guys for joining me. All your support has been greatly, greatly appreciated. And if you guys are new and you made it all the way through, thanks a lot. If you could hit a like, hit a subscribe, do the YouTube jazz, it'd be fantastic. This is Misfit. I'm out. Everybody stay safe. Have a good rest of your day. And I will talk to you on the next one.